and start the webinar. Good luck, guys. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. I'm going to give folks just a couple seconds to settle your audio and your video preferences. We're so excited that you guys are here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just giving folks a couple seconds to come on in, take a virtual seat, settle your audio and video preferences, and then we will go ahead and get started. All right, it looks like a good number of folks are in the room. Guys, welcome. First and foremost, happy Wednesday on behalf of ACRO, as well as our partners, Alethea. We want to warmly welcome you to the session on why institutional CRM needs to become the new normal. Before I pass the mic over to our panelists, I'm going to go ahead and just give a brief tech intro. For those of you joining us for the first time, Zoom webinar is the platform that we're going to be using today, meaning that your mics and your videos are going to be disabled by default, but if you guys want to interact with one another or with our panelists, there are two primary ways that you can do this. The first is using our chat, which is a great way to connect with fellow participants as well as panelists, and you're going to want to make sure that you're indicating who you're chatting to. You can either chat directly with us or with everyone, so make sure that you're selecting the right one. But for general questions, we really encourage you to use our Q&A feature, which is again at that bottom of your navigation panel on Zoom. What the Q&A feature allows you to do is post your questions at any time. Everybody who is in attendance can see your questions and upvote your questions as well. And I believe that we're gonna have time, excuse me, at the very end for our panelists to answer your questions. And so rest assured they will be answered towards the end. But without further ado, I want to warmly welcome Damien. He's going to be kicking off our webinar. Thank you so much for being here, Damien.
Thank you very much. And maybe if we want to jumpstart this presentation, let's present ourselves. So my name is Damien Dumas. I'm Senior Manager in Aditya and leading the higher education practice. I'm based in Montreal, as you can probably hear the French accent. And I'm working with institutions across North America since more than 15 years. And today I will be joined by Charles Finstad. Maybe Charles?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I guess it's safe. Actually, it could be good morning on the coast still. My name is Charles Finstad. I'm Chief Revenue Officer with a firm called Frequency Foundry. Frequency Foundry is a software partner to Alethea. We produce a higher education solution called Gray Matter, and we're going to be talking about how some of Damien's vision and Alethea's vision gets realized with our software over the course of the presentation today.
Thank you, Charles. So for sure, I think all institutions are talking about digital transformation, and we're talking about it as a trend, but what we're seeing is it's not anymore a trend. And so we just show you a couple of pictures to start this. And here in 2005, so it's not that far away, it's kind of 17 years away, it was at the nomination of Pope Benedict. And you can see the room there. And you can see at the bottom a couple of cell phones, to this nomination. And look at the impact. 8 years later, when the Pope Francis was nominated, you can see, mobile everywhere, and you can see that the digital transformation is in the life of everybody. But 7 years after, look at this. It's in 2020. Pope Francis is doing the same thing that you were doing in institution, talking in front of Zoom, like we're doing today, to connect with all of his, all of the participants here because of the pandemic. And so you can see how, it was kind of running fast. And when you see this type of picture, you can imagine that we can do it the same thing in higher education. And you can see the pace of digital transformation is very fast. So digital transformation is impacting all industries. So before jumping in higher education, we can talk about maybe the music industry. You know, everybody, you know, a lot of people think that music industry is going bad. And in fact, music industry, we never saw so many music around the world. It's more the record industry that is problematic. So it's more how we're distributing, how we're consuming the music that is changing. It's the same thing for the news. What is happening in higher education is there's a big shift from teaching to learning. So before, I'm an old guy, you know, and when I was at the university, we were relying on our teacher, you know, to provide us all of the things we need to learn, to provide us all the reading we need to do, you know, in order to be ready, you know, for our graduation. Today, my kids going to university, they're reading so many things, they're viewing so many things before going to a class that we can see it's the learning piece, you know, that they're doing. So we need to transform how we are interacting with our student and become a lot more student focused with this digital transformation. So what is a digital transformation? I think this is a big question that for some people, it's quite tough to answer. And we've described it with those 6 pillars. First, on the left side at the bottom, connecting people. I think you all see, you know, how the social network has transformed how we're connecting together. And the technology is there to help, you know, to connect between us or to connect, you know, with our institution. And so the way to connect is drastically changing. Connecting things. For sure, in this environment, we need to connect, you know, the CRM, we need to connect the heating, we need to connect the classroom, you know, and we can do it using technology, the Internet of Things. Transforming processes. And here I'm not talking just about automating processes, it's transforming. When we were talking about music earlier, we're not consuming the music the same way. We're not buying any more record. You know, we have playlists that we can listen and access to the music that we want. So it's the same thing in higher education with digital transformation. We can transform processes on how we are interacting, how we are managing, you know, the learning piece. We don't necessarily need any more kind of specific semester, micro-credential, you know, open learning, are all things that can really transform how we're working. And on the right side, governing and managing the data, because the word digital starts with the data. You know, there's so many Excel, there's so many paper form in institution, and it's impossible to do digital processes if we're not putting this data in a computer and manage it digitally. And the day that we have the data, we can leverage the intelligence of it to really analyze and being able to produce a personalized experience. Because everybody is working with digital solution like Amazon, and the personalization experience that we all like come from this layer of data intelligence. Saying this, if we go into the higher education context, as I said, I've worked with more than 30 institutions, and I can say that this image is probably depicting all institutions I work with. Siloed, duplication, fragmentation. And if we want to manage well the data, you know, it's very complex to have this ecosystem. And so when we have this type of duplication, what does it mean? It creates silos. And when we think about the student, it breaks the experience because we don't know where to go to consume the services. Some services are from the SIS, some services are coming from a portal, some services are coming specifically from a faculty. And if you're in a couple of faculties, you may have different LMS that you need to learn. And globally, the student doesn't know where to access their information. And I've done a lot of focus group with students, and I was always surprised to see the reaction of students where we're talking about some services to say, oh, how can we access the services? Where it is, I didn't knew about this. And because all of those services are hidden, are fragmented, or are siloed within the faculties. And one of the key things of digital transformation is to ease the access and the consumption of services. And when we have silos, there's an issue we need to integrate. When I see this picture, I'm always asking myself, do I want to be in front or in the back, to really support this integration? And the easy answer is we don't want to be there. But honestly, this is what you're asking to your IT people. Your IT to connect all of those silos and trying to have it in real time and trying to minimize data, double entries, triple entries. But at the end of the day, I think we all agree that it's expensive, it's ineffective, and it's really time consuming. And this is why IT has a long list of requirements and they're so slow to answer your requirements. But globally, and I really like this sentence, higher education institutions are data rich and insights poor. If we're not considering this fragmentation, you have a lot of data everywhere. But because it's not structured, it's very challenging to get intelligence out of it. And this data value pyramid is really describing well, the context of what is needed to provide the personalized experience that is based on action. So at the bottom, we have the data. And the data is, in different system of record and different sources. But when we add context, it becomes an information. With meaning, it becomes knowledge. But we need to have the insight, to have, the wisdom and to be able to take action or to take decision to really interact with our customer. And I think the best way to talk about this is really to show an example. All institutions, you have at the end of semester, you have results, you have a GPA, a semester GPA. If you have a student that has 2.3, what does it mean? Quite average, isn't it? But we don't know, the context. We start to have a better idea when we see the trends and we see that, this student has started with a kind of a 4 as a GPA and is dropping, since the first 2 semesters. And, but you still have a 2.15. So if we just look at 3.15, it's good, but, we can feel there's a problem. But if we have the data about his behavior and we see that he's going a lot less into the LMS, he's not participating in any conference, he's not going anymore to the library, and he hasn't met with an advisor, we can understand that, the engagement is problematic and there's a big changes in his behavior. So automatically we can say, let's act on this. But I think we need to have his persona. If the student wants to be a researcher, or if the student wants to be part of the Big 4 organization, we can have a nudges to say, hey, we need to support the student because for sure he will never meet his ambition. And going to that thread, he will need to decide, what he wants to do after. So we need to support him better. But if the student is the football player, there's probably no problem with his 3.15, but we can alert his coach just to say he may lose his availability if he's keeping this path. But at the end of the day, if this student is a student that was like me, I would say, I just wanted to have my paper at that time. You should not invest any time with the student because that he will succeed with this 3.15. So it's very important to have more data on the behavior about our student to really be able to create a persona and to know what are the best action to take with the student. So when I'm talking with a registrar, when I'm talking with people from an institution, many of them are thinking that, oh, that's great, but we need to have one system to do this as we were doing with the SIS. And no, we need to have kind of an architecture. We need to have specific solution to support this. Fastly, we need to have a system of action to be able to send those personalized messages, those nudges, those alerts. To do this, we need to have a system of intelligence that will really identify the pattern, the persona, the best actions. And we need to have behind this a system of engagement, because system of engagement will help to improve the interaction with our constituent, with our student, and it will help to capture a lot more data than we used to have. And this data will need to be stored in the system of record. And for sure, we need to respect the source of truth like SIS, that still be the system of record for academic data, but we will have potentially kind of a CRM to be the system of record for their participation to events and that type of thing. And at the bottom, we need to have a system of master data, because if we are interacting with John Smith, we need to be sure that it's the right John Smith, because with that fragmentation and that duplication, it could be a problem to see, what are all the activities this John Smith is doing. So what we are seeing is now, it's not the SIS that can provide this actionable wisdom or knowledge to really embrace the digital transformation. CRM are now becoming a foundation, for higher education. And it's probably the preferred platform to manage this knowledge, to manage this engagement with a student, and to have more visibility on the information of your students since they are in the recruitment process until they are graduated. And at the end of the day, in a way, you want to stay in relation with them, and the CRM can manage this type of information. But talking about institutional CRM, I think we have a new problem. Talking with institutions, I've seen institutions that have now more than 9 or 10 CRM, because you continue to replicate your current state, and all faculties, all units want to manage their specific requirement, their specificities, and for them, the best way is to have one platform to support their specific things. And this is why I like the sentence, the best is the enemy of good, because it could be the best approach for your faculty, but for sure, when you're considering it in the whole context, it's not the best approach for the whole institution, because you will never be able to get the student 360 view that you're asking. And more than this, in the software as a service mode, you will pay a lot more for those services. So how can we architect this institutional CRM? And we have, there's some different patterns that exist. For sure, we can have one centralized CRM, that will replace all the CRM that exists in your institution. I know an institution that wants to have another approach, that want to have specific CRM to manage specific type of customer, like the prospect, the student, the alumni, and I should put alumni and donor, where you want to manage, all of the advancement transaction. But in this case, you will need to have kind of a one master profile. If you want to integrate the data and get this 360 view, you will need to have the student data platform. We can talk about constituent, but I think in this case, it's more relevant to talk about student. Or we can have another core CRM, and a core CRM that should provide a lot of CRM services, such as digital marketing, such as events, such as survey, and to have some specific CRM to support specific needs, but all integrated, with the institutional CRM. But for all of those patterns, we still need to have this student data platform in our mind because we need to get a holistic view on our student. But how to achieve this? And honestly, I was thinking to myself, why the SIS is almost the only standardized solution across a large institution. Because I'm surprised on any other solution, I can see duplication at some place except for the SIS. Why? I will ask you the question if you're in the room, but I will provide here my answer. All institution has officialized one official transcript or one student account. You cannot have a specific transcript from one faculty. And because of this, you need to use the SIS. And the day that you have it to provide the transcript, for sure you will use it to do the enrollment and to do all of the other services that are provided by an SIS. And so, thinking about this, we probably need to find a catalyst, the same type of services that will on what we will base our implementation of institutional CRM. And putting here some ideas, for sure, to have this student 360 view, to have this master student can be a good value getting out of a CRM. But we may want to centralize all of our digital marketing effort, because when we're communicating to our alumni, we need to have visibility on how we're communicating with our student or with our donor. But co-curricular transcript, if we want to have our CRM to manage all of the activities that exist on campus, as part of our student engagement, we can provide a co-curricular transcript. And more importantly, we can provide, we can manage a comprehensive learner record within the CRM by adding, the skills that a student will acquire during those activities. Or we can decide to remove, the duplication of events or remove the duplication of recruitment and use the CRM to standardize those services. But talking about standardization is always a challenge. Or we can use a CRM to manage the graduate milestones, because I know a lot of institutions are struggling to really manage, how a graduate student is progressing into his thesis. And because it's the same concept than having a sales in the CRM, this is something we start to see happening in a CRM. So I think one of the key questions here is, what is the best catalyst for your institution? And having this to really use this catalyst to implement an institutional CRM. And the day that you will have the CRM in the room, it will be just more easy to promote those institutional services that can be consumed by all of your faculties. Having said this, it's something to say this in theory, but does it exist? Do we have solutions that can do it? And before just asking Charles to continue to do this presentation, I can just say that working with the institution, I was talking about CRM, I think, since more than 10 years, and not just to have a CRM that managed specific engagement, but to have this holistic perspective. And based on our research, Gray Matter is probably the solution that is the more complete to offer this, this student data platform approach. So maybe Charles, if you can jump in and continue, this presentation to see in real life how it can be done.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Damien, and thank all of the audience members for your attention. A great question about how do we approach the concept of the student data platform with a tool that we're defining as CRM, and really to a large degree, we kind of think that CRM is a little bit of a limiting term, right? Our product, Gray Matter, is a higher education CRM, but it is built on top of a leading CRM platform, one that's provided to us from Microsoft. The concept that we were going after with our CRM, sort of the technology part of the tool, is really to be able to support the entirety of the student lifecycle, right? To be able to cover every aspect of the relationship and the engagement between the institution and a constituent, or a student as they're a prospect, as they're being recruited, as they're going through the application and the admission process into their academic career, and then beyond into being a donor or an alumni, and really understanding that there is a mandate to capture as much of the engagement between the institution and that individual as possible, so that we can provide relevant, tailored, and personalized communication and engagement to assist the institution with that. The idea of that complete coverage of the student life cycle is supplemented on our side with our product, as we're as a Microsoft-based solution. We are integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem already. So the tools and the systems that you're used to dealing with on a day-to-day basis are closely related to our solution and automatically integrated. And of course, because CRM, in our vision of CRM anyways, because CRM it functions as kind of a hub, it really does require that there is integration and interoperability between other traditional higher education solutions. So solutions like an SIS or an LMS or other academic solutions that exist in your environment today, they all have engagement data, and they all need to participate in this environment to create that complete picture. So let's step into a little bit of kind of the history of CRM. And I think as we go through this, you'll start to understand why we sometimes believe that calling it CRM really sort of sells it short of where the vision should be. So when we started with CRM technologies, back in the 80s and 90s, and there may or may not be people on the call that remember back that far, certainly Damien and I do. In the 80s, CRM was really the replacement for your Rolodex, right? The card system that sat on your desk with somebody's name and telephone number and the names of their children and their dates of birth. So you had that concept of really trying to figure out how you would use that information to engage. We then, of course, looked at the CRMs we were putting in play, and we evolved them to be an integral part of that engagement, of that communication. So we start using them almost in a marketing kind of way. And then, of course, as technology has evolved over the last couple of decades, the inevitable migration into being able to do this all on a mobile device, being able to move your solution into the cloud, so it's not a set of servers in a rack in your data center, because largely that doesn't exist in a lot of places anymore. But then we got to the idea that we're capturing and we're managing all this data, and that's fantastic, but really we've got to do something with it, right? So that's where these big analytic engines started to sort of push the kind of what we think the fifth generation of CRM, so that we're starting to do that business intelligence work. We're starting to provide and of course I have an angry dog. We're starting to do that business intelligence work, the advanced analytics. We're starting to even think about concepts like artificial intelligence. So we're now doing things with that data. Now, what we've done with Gray Matter is we've sort of taken that concept, we've pushed it forward to what we call the system of action. That's where a solution is capable of understanding the patterns of data, of analyzing based on patterns that you're teaching it to look for. And it's automatically creating engagement, relevant, tailored engagement between the constituent, between the student and the institution, based on the pattern of data that we see. Now, whether it's the the trend that Damien pointed out in his slide with the falling GPA or lowered attendance, or if it is a slower rate of connection to the institution through events or anything along those lines, all of these can be used as triggers that actually allow us to automate the way that we engage, and really, take the burden of a lot of the mundane day-to-day kind of engagement out of the hands of what are often very, very heavily taxed higher education administrators. So let's move on to covering a little bit more around the student 360. So when we talk about this, and I think this is a term that gets batted around quite a bit, the student 360, we talk about every aspect of engagement, right? Capturing everything from prospect and applicant type activities through to current student activities. The admissions process, of course, is in there. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to aggregate data from across all of those aspects of the life cycle into that comprehensive learner record, right? So that we can provide tailored and targeted communication. We can provide predictive analytics around the data that we're seeing and the trends that we're seeing in data, either with an individual or with a group. And we really, we can then apply, the big artificial intelligence and machine learning engines to that aggregated data set, because you've got that master student 360 degree view. And that's really what that's the goal that we are going after with our offering with Gray Matter. Damien? So based on the complete student life cycle, and I think we have to acknowledge that the student life cycle is not the same for everybody, right? And sometimes a student life cycle can be incredibly complex. It is entirely possible for a constituent to play multiple roles in the life cycle. It is entirely possible that a current student is a prospect for a graduate program at the same university, or an alumni is going back in continuing education or professional development. And really the job of the CRM is to identify that individual and all of those touch points. And those touch points can branch, right? Along the student journey. And we need a system that is able to track the student and accommodate the fact that a constituent can play more than one role in its engagement with the institution at one time. Thank you, Damien. So to get to that, let's step back to that concept of CRM, and really what does CRM provide us? And I'll talk about this from the perspective of not just Microsoft, but all of the other CRM providers that are out there in the world today. CRM, as we know it, is a platform that comes from a big software vendor like a Microsoft or a Salesforce. Really it's an aggregation of services that are kind of table stakes in terms of what we need to be able to do business on a day-to-day basis. We need to be able to capture a profile. We need to be able to manage an event. We need to be able to provide some automated activities with workflows. We need to be able to do case management or deliver surveys. We need to be able to manage interactions and communications across a wide variety of channels, be it email or through a web portal or through social media or text messaging or even telephony, and aggregate all of that into a single source. So those are really just the base services that you need, that you should be expecting to see in a CRM platform. You layer on top of that concept of the reporting and analytics that you can add to it, right? And then you take a look at a vendor like us and a product like Gray Matter, where really we are changing the context of those services to really reflect the reality of the roles that you need to deal with and the constituents in their life cycle. So really that's where the student data platform comes together. And that's really where we feel that that Gray Matter is a really, really good solution to help you realize the kind of vision that Damien and Alithia talk about. So where do we get these platforms? So a great example of a platform, and the one that we build on, comes from Microsoft. It's called the Microsoft Higher Education Accelerator. The Microsoft Higher Education Accelerator really provides us the foundation that we build on. It models every aspect of the life cycle and the interaction, and our product really sort of fits in that green circle there, or the green hexagon, the student success hexagon. But you'll see that the data model is comprehensive. It covers everything from institutional operations to learning management and research, as well as the student life cycle. So Microsoft has built this with a vision of being able to provide a foundation for all kinds of other solutions that vendors like Foundry can put into the market. And because they're built on top of that common foundation, integration between those solutions becomes almost trivial. So the way that integration really plays out is it solves one of the huge problems that we have in systems implementations today, where we spend so much time trying to figure out how to make this solution talk to my Oracle or to my Ellucian. If we all build on top of the same foundation, that problem goes away, and we're allowed to focus on higher value problems. We're able to focus on things like process modeling and analysis and analytics and predictives, as opposed to doing the same sort of table stakes work, putting together a data model and a set of services that are common, that really all vendors should have. So my point about this, Damien, I think I have a little automation, is that the concept of a platform is an absolutely essential part of every CRM story. You do not want a vendor that is reinventing a data model, right? You do not want a vendor that is focusing on those low-level items, as opposed to solving the business problems that you are facing on a day-to-day basis, especially in a challenging time that we've all lived through in the last couple of years with COVID. All right, so let's just a couple slides here to finish off before I turn it back to Damien. So benefits to the institution. And when I'm gonna talk through benefits here, and I'm not gonna read a list here, but what I want you to take from this list is that your CRM should be providing these operational benefits to the institution. Identify a best fit student, right? Streamline some processes. Create that concept of the comprehensive learner record. These are the benefits that you should be expecting out of a CRM solution. Apologies, just 1 second, please. Right, with the idea that your institution can evolve to become a learning provider of choice for prospects. On the other hand, from the student perspective, your CRM is really responsible for, if properly implemented, is responsible for delivering a ton of value to students. Simplification of the application process, right? Something that is often like intimidating and highly complex, right? Provide the right kind of checklists and reminders and nudges to students to make sure that application is moving forward. Once the application is out there, conversion and onboarding. Obviously, your CRM solution can play a huge role in there. And then as you move through your academic career, watching for those kind of nudges, the changes in patterns of data that can be easily recognized by the solution, that can automate action, automate activity, do things like automatically scheduling appointments with academic advisors. These are things that we can easily do with a properly implemented CRM. And of course, providing a single portal for a student to get a complete picture of their academic life and student services. All right. Lastly, and just a little bit from the technology standpoint, mixed with this concept that Damien is going after of providing the student data hub, because the solution has a fantastically well-developed application programming interface, an API that hangs off the side of it, we're able to integrate to all of those traditional systems that you see and all the traditional processes that you see implemented in higher education. So, regardless of whether you do have other CRM solutions, whether you have an SIS or an LMS that contains vital engagement data, aggregating that data into gray matter, into part of the student data hub, is really what we need to do in order to move forward towards that concept of the comprehensive learner record. And I think from there, I'm going to hand back to Damien.
Yes, thank you, Charles. And so when we say gray matter, we'll take you there. And I think it's just good to go back to our digital architecture that we've showed you before. So system of action, for sure, it can be provided by marketing automation. All of the CRM will come with a marketing automation that, we will decide how to send messages to our student based on the data, or to have specialized solution on next best offer. System of intelligence, everything in red is coming from our solution. The gray matter is in fact a student data platform, so it played a role of a data hub, but it can be also integrated with your data warehouse if you have one, and to be sure that your AI or machine learning can be connected to it. Systems of engagement, it comes with a portal, and we need to structure it to ensure that the student portal or the prospect portal will integrate all of the services and be able to connect through, like a student portal, able to connect with an LMS, for example, using a single sign-on that would become transparent to your end user, connecting once to the portal and getting access to all of the services. As we're saying, system of record, you need to keep your SIS, you need to keep your financial solution, you need to keep, many of your other solutions that exist. But the CRM could become, or should become, the system of record for admission, because the CRM could be the main platform for your prospect. And you can do your advising, managing your case, managing your continuing education, events, co-curriculars, study plan, questionnaire, appointment, communication, and the CLR, that is the comprehensive learner record, that can be managed within the CRM. And we can also talk about the common data services, because you are integrating all the data together. The CRM can be connected with a master data platform, or create, those deduplication to ensure that we're managing the right student. And with this, I think as a conclusion, what we want to say is there are some key takeaways. First, and I think it's important what is in left, our vision is really think big, start small, scale fast, because at the end of the day, we want to save money. And how to do this? We need to architect this digital ecosystem. I see too many institutions just jumping into an implementation. Oh, we want to have a recruitment solution, and we're procuring a procurement solution, and we will try to fit it in our ecosystem. Ideally, we should architect this with a global picture to ensure that we have all the data and we're minimizing all of those funky integration to have something that will be manageable after. We need to design the journey. We need to develop customer journey and persona for your full student life cycle. And so meaning that we really need to think about the experience and thinking about how a student will consume his services. And sometimes, you can select the nicest solution because you feel the experience is better. But I can say that what students are requesting is to have one place. It's better to centralize services than trying to have often the sexiest platform for specific services. Number 3 is very important. Stop procuring piece by piece. I think when you're thinking big, you can create RFP where you will have, a complete list of requirements for student engagement, for admission together, just the list that I put into the CRM, and to see what are the platforms that can support this with an holistic perspective. And in your RFP, you're probably prioritizing, what you want to start with. And this is the start small. You would probably prioritize, I want to have admission, for example, but I will have a solution that will support the whole life cycle. And if you're doing this, and I'm sure you know how long it is to manage an RFP process, you will not need anymore to have this. You will have a platform, and you just need to open, if I can say, the capabilities, and it will be ready to be deployed. You need to think data first. It's by thinking data. I know it will be a challenge to standardize processes across faculties, but it should not be a challenge to standardize the data across faculty, because a student is a student, and we need to, there's some variance in processes, but we must stick to our data definition and really define this data and to implement it. And this is where you will need probably to have a good data governance behind this. And at the end, we need to have a system of action to really provide this personalized experience. And I remember when I was talking with one dean of a faculty of medicine in Montreal, and we were talking about all of the services we can provide to a student, using those system of actions. And the dean was a bit resistant, because he was saying, hey, one of the things we need to teach to students is how to organize themselves. And we should not do this and let them organize themselves. But what I was saying, I remember it was the same thing my dad was saying to me about a calculator. You should be able to count by yourself. You don't need always to have a calculator. And so today, in the world, we're all receiving, nudges or alerts as a reminder. And our students are growing into this world. And so I think we just need to adapt as an institution to be sure that we can provide them the similar experience, because we are teaching them to be ready to lead this world, and this is the world they will be in. So I think it may sound very aggressive, I would say, but it's not a dream anymore. We can do this together. We see institutions that are starting to do this. And the challenge here is not anymore the technology. The challenge is really the culture of an institution, how we are ready to share data as an institution. Because my experience is always the same thing, everybody wants to get the data from the others, but nobody wants to share the data with the others. So if we can do this cultural shift by, really working together to create the Student 360, this is where I believe that we can achieve the ambition, or your ambition, to support digital transformation. So it's completing, our presentation. We still have kind of 10 minutes left. I don't know if there's question, discussion. We are really open to this.
And I think we could take questions either through the Q&A, or if people are able to come off mic. I'm not sure, Christina, if they're able to do that, but if people want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely encourage engagement. So feel free, again, as introduced at the beginning, to check out that Q&A. Even dropping a question into the chat would be okay as well. And if you're feeling bold enough to come off of mute of the camera, please feel free to also engage in that way too.
And in the meantime, I think we have some poll questions that we can run in the background while we're taking questions from the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go ahead and launch that right now. There we go. Alrighty, so it should be up and running. And again, we really appreciate everybody's participation and engagement. This helps us tailor our presentations and our delivery to you best. So thank you again for your engagement.
So any questions? But if there's any question, you have our email address here. And for sure, you can feel free to connect with both of us, and to talk about, the challenges you're facing and talk about this. I've been personally involved with some institution currently, and that notion of catalyst is something that I feel that you need to find, to really see how to standardize the CRM with this institutional perspective. We really need to have this catalyst for that can vary from institution to institution.
Damien, we've got a couple of questions here. I think the first one about average implementation time for a universal CRM, and is it a good idea to have one separate CRM for student services departments on campus? So maybe I'll take the first part of this and I'll leave you with the second part. So average implementation times, of course, being a consultant, it depends, right? Realistically, we see small institutions with sort of targeted point solutions that they want to go after with CRM, starting in one area of the life cycle, and that can be a project that's anywhere from 4 to 6 months, all the way up to very large, institutions. And I think right now we're engaged in a project that will span 20 months for a very, very large institution across the entirety of the life cycle. Actually, I think the entirety of the life cycle except for a alumni donor. So Damien, do you want to address the second part of the question?
Yeah, I feel that student services is one of the good examples to use an institutional CRM and not to have separate CRM for student services, because my feeling is the level of complexity of those services is not like admission, where sometimes you have specific things, but I really believe that this is something that can be standardized or harmonized, I would say that way, across institution. I feel there's some sector that it will be a bit challenging, like disabilities, because I know that we want to manage well the security around it. But the good news is security has improved a lot. And I would say that it's probably better to manage the security in an institutional CRM than to manage, as the old practice, to put it in an independent platform that is stored on a PC somewhere that is more dangerous. And anyway, my experience said that often disabilities, the student wants the institution to be aware. So it's how we're managing the consent into this, and because consent is probably the biggest driver into how we want to use the data, and consent need to be managed with an institutional perspective in a CRM.
Right. Damien, I think we've got 2 questions here that I see. One, I'm gonna have you answer again. What happens to the CRM platforms currently used once transition to an institutional CRM is in place?
This is a good question, because often there's a lot of resistance around it, because again, it's so specific, fits like a glove, that we want to keep it. So what we're doing with some institutions, we try to keep them outside for now. We start to implement the foundation and the services, and the day that we're providing similar services in the institutional CRM, the faculty and those people start to wonder why we're still paying for this when we can leverage first the services for free because it's embedded, and 2, we have a lot more data, a lot more insight on our student, and we will be better placed to serve them. So I think we need to do it by phase and let them play with their CRM and do it once we can confirm the value of the institutional CRM.
All right, excellent. And I think Christina's pointed out that that Josie has a hand up and would like to ask us a question.
Hi, Josie. I just gave you talking permission, so at your comfort level, when you want to come off mute, you can ask your question at any time. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, totally forgot my hand was up. I started to ask the question that one thing that I took away from all this is that with all these different CRMs, it's kind of different. Their records about students can be stored in so many places, and that information is probably, you know, some information that might be valuable to like an admissions person might also be valuable to a faculty person. So like, how do you recommend institutions begin to try and move student record information into one place? Because it feels like a really impossible task when you look at all the different places out there that people keep information, like you said earlier.
And Josie, it's a great question because we don't want to centralize everything at one place. The SIS needs to stay the system of record, you know, and getting all of the details around your academic progress and doing degree audit. But we, in the CRM, we need to just define what are the data we need if we want to take action to students. Give you an example. If we want to recruit our best student for graduate studies, we need to have an idea of what is his GPA, what is his program, what is his interest. So we need to bring some data from the SIS into the CRM to be able to create those actions, you know, to interact with our student. And if we're managing advising within the CRM, you know, we will need to decide and we will need to architect, you know, does the advisor need to get the data from the SIS and manage kind of a study plan in the CRM or in the SIS? I think it depends on the capabilities of your SIS. It depends on what you want to achieve into your CRM. And the architecture is key to not duplicate everything, but it's the need to know, it's the need to use, if I can say, what need to be brought into the CRM. Hope it answers.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. Is there anything else before we let folks go?
Thank you. Maybe.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I'm going to come back on camera here just briefly. Hello, guys. Again, on behalf of ACRO, we want to thank you so much for taking the time to engage with us and to learn more about this awesome program. Thank you for your engagement, for your questions. The contact information for Damien and Charles can be found on this last screen as well. And if you have any follow-up questions for ACRO personally, you are more than welcome to reach out to us directly. This slide deck, and I believe the recording will also be available. We usually say about a week after the webinar has officially closed out. But thank you, Charles and Damien and Cheryl. Thank you guys so much for being here and for being present with us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to being in touch in the future.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.